Hello, and glad you can join us. Here's what's happening, grief and sorrow, on this first full day of official mourning.
He traveled to a local prison in Rome to spend time with the inmates.
Reflections on the final days of Pope Francis.
Change so that you can afford food and housing.
The last-minute election platform reveal. After a record-breaking turnout for early voting.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
As the faithful begin to gather in Rome for Saturday's funeral, the pontiff is lying in state in an open casket inside the chapel of the papal residence. Already, world leaders like Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky have said they will attend. And today we saw the cardinals begin to congregate as they map out the next steps. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin is in St. Peter's Square. And Geneviève, give us a sense of what it's like to be there.
Yes, Andy, people from around the world have been flocking here to St. Peter's Square to pay their last respects. A glimpse of the people's Pope Francis lying in state here in the chapel at Casa Santa Marta, where he lived simply and passed away. Vatican employees and those closest to the pontiff were first to pay tribute. Among them, Vatican analyst Gerard O'Connell.
After more than 20 years, knowing him as a friend, to know now he's no longer a friend on earth, he's a friend in heaven.
The Vatican has released some of the details of the Pope's final hours. He rested in the afternoon, had an early dinner. He thanked his health assistant for granting him his wish to ride through St. Peter's Square. And then in the early morning hours Monday, he suddenly passed away. Hundreds of thousands are expected to pay their respects in accordance with the age-old rituals and traditions of the Catholic Church. In the crowd today, a group from Canada, from the Holy Spirit Parish in Stittsville, Ontario.
The world lost quite a guy. I mean, he was, always for the poor.
They had planned to be here for the church's Jubilee celebrations, but are now focusing their pilgrimage on the Pope.
We hope to be here tomorrow, line up early and be able to pay our respects to someone we admired and loved.
Cardinals from around the globe have been called to Rome and held a first meeting to lay out the timeline for the ceremonies. The Pope's body will be moved to St. Peter's Basilica for the public viewing that will last 3 days. The funeral will be held Saturday.
He simplified the ceremony to say, let's make it like any ordinary Christian.
A procession will then take the Pope's body to St. Mary Major for burial in a simple wooden coffin in accordance with the Pope's final wishes, near an icon of the Virgin Mary he admired in a basilica where he often prayed. And Sandy, many here say they hope to take part in those ceremonies to show just how much they admired the Pope. Sandy.
Jen, thank you. Canada's newest cardinal, who was appointed by Pope Francis, led prayers in honor of the late pontiff today.
We come as a family to mourn the death of our spiritual father.
Cardinal Frank Leo, Archbishop of Toronto, conducted a special mass and reflected on the legacy of Francis. He was among the last group of cardinals appointed in December. A mass and vigil for the Pope is also being held in Montreal. Now, Francis never did visit his home country of Argentina after becoming the pontiff, but he is being remembered there fondly. A large crowd sang and applauded outside a church in the Buenos Aires neighborhood where Francis grew up. He was also honored by the local soccer club he cheered for and remained a member even as a pope. Argentina declared 7 days of national mourning following his death. Well, a high-profile criminal trial got underway today in London, Ontario. 5 former members of Canada's World Junior Hockey team are accused of a group sexual assault that allegedly took place in a hotel in that city in 2018. All 5 have pleaded not guilty. CTV's Adrian Gobriel is outside the courthouse in London as the process is underway. Adrian.
Sandy, today, 5 accused who were once championship teammates each walked into a courtroom here in London, Ontario for the very first time for a trial the likes of which our country has never seen before. One by one, 5 players of the 2018 gold medal winning World Junior Hockey team arrived flanked by their lawyers. Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, Carter Hart, Michael McLeod, and Alex Fermenton have each been charged with sexual assault. McLeod is also facing one charge of being party to the offense. Inside a courtroom, rows of 5 separate tables for each of the accused lined one side of the room. When asked to address the court, each stood and pleaded not guilty. Justice Maria Caracia then moved forward with selecting 14 jurors from a group of 200 sitting in a separate courtroom.
You know very little about the potential jurors. You know occupation, you know age, you know general area that they live in, but you don't know very much about them.
One person who will have their identity and credibility called into question by the defense is the alleged victim, who's expected to be called to the stand as early as this Friday.
A lot of times in these sexual assault cases, it comes down to the word and the testimony of the complainant.
The alleged group sexual assault took place inside this London, Ontario hotel in June of 2018 following a Hockey Canada gala. A lawsuit filed in April of 2022 states that the alleged female victim met a group of young men at a bar following the gala and had consensual sex with one of the players. She alleges that afterwards, 7 others entered the hotel room and, quote, directed, manipulated, and intimidated her into remaining in the room where she says she was sexually assaulted.
It's always difficult for the Crown to prove these cases because at the end of the day, it is proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
We also heard a list of 40 potential witnesses today. Some of those who could be taking the stand include members of that World Junior Hockey team who haven't been charged. Some of those players are currently playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Sandy.
Adrian Gobriel. Advance polls are now closed after a record 7.3 million people went to vote early. And as we enter the home stretch of the election campaign, a late reveal from the Conservatives of their party's fiscal platform. CTV's Abigail Beeman has a breakdown of the plans.
Change, the Conservative Party's platform name and its leaders' rallying cry.
Every dollar of new spending in our platform, especially for things like defense, will be met with $1.50 in savings.
Conservatives are promising $35 billion in new spending over 4 years, a big chunk on defense. Their tax cuts are now costed, adding up to $75 billion. The major party plank of lowering the lowest tax bracket will be phased in, hitting 12.75% by the 2028 tax year and costing $30 billion over 4 years. By then, Conservatives are promising to reduce the deficit to $14 billion.
The Conservatives says they're going to balance the budget as soon as possible. Well, that's a subjective term, possible, but they're not even close to balancing it by 2028. And again, if you add in the tariff effect, they're way off.
Conservatives are banking on $20 billion in tariffs from Canada's response to the trade war, making up a big portion of revenue. Spending reductions and cuts to get there total $56 billion through things like civil service attrition and cutting consultants and foreign aid.
These numbers are a joke. We aren't in a joke. We are in the worst crisis of our lives. It takes a serious government. It takes a serious plan.
The Liberal leader accuses the Conservatives of relying on phantom growth in the economy that boosts the numbers, while the NDP warn of future cuts.
On the eve of an election, they tell you that, oh, they're going to keep it. Canadians know better. They know that that's not true.
While much of what's in Poilievre's platform was previously released, there are a few new promises, including no new or higher federal taxes without holding a referendum first. Sandy?
All right, Abigail Beeman. Now, the NDP is adjusting its pitch to voters as that party faces an ongoing decline in the polls and an existential threat. CTV's Rachel Aiello is traveling with leader Jagmeet Singh. And Rachel, how's the party dealing with that?
Sandy, today, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh faced repeated questions about a new message that he rolled out at a rally last night, telling British Columbians to vote NDP to hold the line against a Liberal supermajority. Singh has been campaigning in NDP-held ridings since last week, but has sought to downplay that it's been about saving the party's foothold in the province. Until last night, when he got on stage at his first rally of the race to tell voters,
British Columbians will decide what happens next.
This after an ex-MP gave the crowd a history lesson about the last time the NDP lost official party status.
1993. What happened? We were not there to fight back.
Singh was pressed today on what message that sends. Is that where your campaign is at right now, that you are facing down potentially losing official party status?
We want Canadians to know what's at stake. And so we want Canadians to know who's really going to hold the line for you.
Polling has showed Liberal leader Mark Carney's lead holding, which could play to New Democrats' favor in the final few days if progressive voters feel they can safely support Singh. But still, some party faithful are wondering what comes next for the NDP.
We might lose some seats. I don't think we're going to quite lose party status.
I think the party is going to need to take an internal look at itself anyway.
I asked Singh today if he'd resign if his party fails to achieve official party status next week. He said he's not looking that far ahead, but that it's been the honor of his life to deliver programs such as dental care to millions of Canadians. Sandy?
All right, Rachel, thank you. As for Mark Carney, the Liberal leader spent the day in Quebec, smiling for photo ops and shaking hands. CTV's Mike LeCouture is traveling with the Liberal campaign. Okay, Mike, what was the message today?
Well, Sandy, Liberal leader Mark Carney is spending his entire day in the province of Quebec, visiting mainly Bloc Québécois ridings that his party believes they can flip next Monday. Carney started his day by having breakfast with Quebec City Mayor Bruno Marchand, and then he had a photo op with some candidates from the area who are trying to hold on to their seats. He then toured this manufacturing plant in Trois-Rivières, which he says will be hit by U.S. tariffs. The Liberal pitch in Quebec is that only the Liberals can stand up to President Donald Trump, and Carney is asking for a strong mandate and more MPs from this province. The Liberals believe they can flip Bloc Québécois ridings, and most of the events today were in Bloc-held areas. One campaign source tells CTV News they believe they can take up to 40 seats in this province. The last time the Liberals won that many seats here, it was under Justin Trudeau in 2015. Carney says threatening supply management and language laws, he believes the calculation for Quebecers should be simple.
We would always protect Canadian culture, Quebec culture, and we are clear from that. But it's the person at the table who will make those determinations and decisions.
To drive home that point, Carney is holding a rally tonight in Laval, a region of the province that is already largely Liberal red. Sandy?
All right, Mike, thank you. Time for CTV Chief Political Correspondent Vashi Capella to join us. And Vashi, I want to start first by talking about that massive advance voter turnout. We're talking 25% increase over the 2021 election. So what does the fact that 7.3 million voters checked their ballots before hearing the Conservative platform tell you?
Yeah, before actually even hearing the full NDP and Liberal platform, because advanced voting got underway with 2 million of them casting a ballot on Friday. It's hard to know, was it because there was a holiday weekend or just the availability of advanced voting that led to those numbers? Either way, I think there is something to take from it, and I'm sure you've heard it on the streets as I have. The electorate is engaged, is highly engaged, and is bifurcated along a line that divides Conservatives from those who support Liberals, and I think that is evidenced through these numbers and the record-setting turnout over advanced polls.
Yeah, I can't recall a time in recent history where the electorate was as engaged as they are right now. To that point then, now that we have the Conservative platform in front of us, we heard from Liberal leader. We also heard from some economists as to their thoughts on it. What stood out to you?
Well, a couple of things stood out. First of all, the fact that there is no path to a balanced budget certainly goes against everything we have heard from the Conservatives about their accusations of fiscal mismanagement under the Trudeau government. So that came as a solid surprise from where I'm sitting. No taking into account the potentially damaging impact of tariffs as well, which would add considerably to the size of the deficit. That's true of the Liberal platform, too. And finally, this idea of banking on sort of mythical economic growth. And I've seen it in so many different examples. But the fact that essentially to offset tax cuts, to offset spending, all this stuff is going to happen in the absence of regulations or laws that they're bringing back. Like, we don't know that for sure. So to account for it in this document is certainly a leap of faith, I guess you can call it, Sandy.
Okay. As always, Vashi, thanks so much for this. All right, a bit of a program note for you now. CTV National News with Omar Sachedina will broadcast live from Victoria in Battleground, British Columbia tomorrow night at 11 p.m. And after the break, we'll come back with a deepening defense controversy.
None of this is based in reality.
Shifting the blame on the signal scandal. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says he did nothing wrong after it was revealed that he shared sensitive information on the commercial messaging app Signal for a second time. So far, his boss is standing by him. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon is here now. Okay, Joy, Pete Hegseth was defiant the first time. What stand is he taking this time around?
Hey, Sandy, well, this is strike two for Pete Hegseth on Fox News today. He was very much on the defensive, insisting that what he shared with his wife and brother and personal lawyer was what he calls informal, unclassified information about military strikes on that group chat Signal. At the same time, the defense secretary threw his top advisors, some of whom he appointed, under the bus, so to speak, accusing them of leaking information. Take a listen.
Those folks who were leaking, who have been pushed out of the building, are now attempting to leak and sabotage the president's agenda and what we're doing. And that's unfortunate. It's not what I do. It's not how we operate. And so you've got another allegation being pushed again, not based on how we're operating around here. We're for the warfighters. We're for the president. And none of this is based in reality.
Well, I wonder, Joy, if the president is not paying as much attention because he's in a public feud right now with the chairman of the Federal Reserve over his refusal to cut interest rates. While at the same time, we should mention that the International Monetary Fund is blaming Donald Trump's tariffs for the looming global economic hardship. So has the White House even responded to that?
Yeah, Sandy, the president's tariffs have unleashed a negative shock in the world economy. At least that's the latest from the IMF. It slashed global growth because of Trump's trade war. Even as the White House says that they have 18 potential trade deals on the table, they're optimistic, too, about a China deal. But the president's public feud with Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, who Trump himself appointed, has rattled markets. The White House press secretary defended her boss. Take a listen.
The president has made his position on the Fed and on Powell quite clear. The president believes that they have been making moves and taking action in the name of politics rather in the name of what's right for the American economy. The president has the right to express his displeasure with the Fed, and he has the right to say he believes interest rates should be lower. He believes Americans should be able to borrow money cheaper than they currently are right now.
None of this is helping investor confidence or the president's approval ratings with U.S. voters. Sandy?
All right, Joy, thank you as always. Still ahead, a close call.
I didn't know what to do except grab my grandson and run.
A stroll that could have taken a disastrous turn. At least 24 tourists were killed at a resort in Kashmir in what is being called the worst attack on civilians in the region in years. Militants opened fire on a group of people in a popular tourist destination in the mountainous region administered by India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that police will go after the killers. A 16-year-old boy who was shot by two police officers, Toronto police officers, died this morning in hospital. The update coming from Ontario's police watchdog, the Special Investigations Unit. The shooting occurred late Sunday at a traffic stop. Video shows an officer ducking and then firing into the car in what the SIU called an exchange of gunfire. And some dramatic video to show you of a narrow escape for a family in upstate New York. A woman was walking with a stroller and two grandchildren after an Easter egg hunt when suddenly the manhole blew up. It sent debris and concrete flying into the air, just missing the three of them.
I couldn't really run straight ahead of me to the corner because the manhole at the next corner blew up too.
In fact, at least 3 manholes exploded in the chain reaction. Firefighters were there within minutes, and while the cause is under investigation, high levels of carbon monoxide were found in the area. CTV National News is back in a moment. Fort McMurray is a bustling hub in northern Alberta, nestled against the vast boreal forest and known for its rich oil sands. CTV's Kathy Lee went to the center of Canada's crude oil production to learn what's important to voters.
In the heart of the Athabasca oil sands is Fort McMurray. The bitumen from the ground is an economic driver for the community of 70,000. And many businesses like this one are linked to the oil and gas sector.
This will go to some tailings pond or a ditch to pump the water out.
In this shop, most have worked in the industry for decades, including operations manager Jeff Walsh.
There's 169 billion barrels of oil in the ground here.
The latest figures show that nearly all of Canada's crude oil exports go to the United States, almost 90% coming from the oil sands here.
Walsh wants to see Alberta oil go to different markets and hopes the next Prime Minister will make that happen.
We've been in a battle for several years about getting our product to new markets so we can get better price for our oil.
A higher price would help the economy. Fort McMurray has weathered multiple oil boom-bust cycles.
It ain't booming anymore, and people are losing their shirts and their jobs and their homes, and because they can't afford to live here.
Affordability, another issue people here want fixed.
Affordability when it comes to groceries, affordability when it comes to renting or owning a home.
Taking care of homeless people, helping out lower, people that need it.
This community has had its fair share of hardships, including floods and the devastating wildfire 9 years ago.
When I was leaving town, there's fire at the road on each side of the highway. It kind of felt like life and death situation.
No matter how dire the situation, the people of Fort McMurray are resilient, but they're hoping to get some more help from whoever wins the election. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Fort McMurray, Alberta.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Your local CTV News is coming up, but we leave you first with some of the sights and sounds of this day in St. Peter's Square. Goodbye for now.